The World in Review. The whole story. World in Review. News without the humanistic bias. World in Review. Analyzing and reporting. World in Review. Education and information. World in Review. From a biblical perspective. The World in Review. With your host, Wally Wood. The World in Review.
We welcome you to this edition of the World in Review over the RevFile TV network. We thank you for watching. As we do with all of our programs, we open with our disclaimer showing the fair use doctrine in the material that we use, because we do use occasionally videos and other material from other sources on the internet in our efforts of trying to relay world news from a biblical perspective. And we thank you for your patience with us. This is more for the information of the service providers that can get us through the copyright stigma and things of this nature. But we thank you for watching and being part of our program. Today we're going to go into an element having to do with something that Jesus said at the last days, when he said in Matthew 24:14 that the gospel of the kingdom would be preached in all the world and then the end will come. And having prepared for this program, I'm finding a lot of evidence out there to show how massively the gospel is going out around the world. There are fewer people statistically today that have not heard the gospel than those who have in the time of history that they've been keeping tabs on this thing. And it's really catching on, especially over the internet. There's not a TV station, radio station, ministry, publication that has a website that isn't broadcasting the gospel to the world. And that helps to set the framework for the conversation we're going to have today, because as I began to enter into this field myself, I began to discover such things like this new radio station back in 1982 called KSBJ here in the Houston area. I was a close friend of its founder, Buddy Holliday, and he spent the better part of 10 years being driven by this vision of a contemporary Christian radio station that would broadcast Christian music around the world. And so on July 8th, 1982, he launched KSBJ and signed it on the air. And I was one of 6 people that he called the day before it went officially on the air. And he called us on the phone. He asked us to tune into a particular frequency, and he was going to play one song as an air test. And that song was Dallas Holmes' version of Rise Again. And it was in commemoration of Houston's first contemporary Christian radio station, KFMK, back in the 60s and 70s. And Buddy was a part of that station. And I made a few appearances on that station myself. So that was the part of our relationship that grew. So the next day, July 8th, is when he went on the air. Now, as part of this station, I want to introduce you to my good friend Joe Paulo, who is the president and CEO currently of KSBJ. You can find them at 89.3 FM and at ksbj.org. And Joe, I want to welcome you to the program. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It's great to be with you.
I am so very pleased. So to start off with, you've been with KSBJ now how long?
3.5 years.
3.5 years.
I wasn't born in Texas, but I got here
as soon as you could.
could.
So where are you originally from?
Grew up in Ohio. My wife and I spent 22 years in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I got into radio.
Okay.
And then had a brief stopover in California for about 3 years before we got here.
Now, do you have a degree in radio?
No, I do not.
Okay.
My undergrad degree is in math education. I was a math teacher for 4 years, and then I got a master's in business.
So what got you into radio?
My wife.
Really?
Yes.
She said you had a radio voice.
We had just gotten married, and I had always loved Christian music, and I needed a part-time job because I was finishing up school. We lived just down the road from this little AM radio station, and she said, you know, you ought to go apply down there, see if they'll hire you. And I went down there, and they said, yeah, just give us an air check tape. And I said,
what's that?
An air check tape. But that got me started. It got in my blood. I did go ahead and go into math teaching for 4 years, but there was a Christian radio station in Charlotte that was coming on the air right around the time I was starting to teach. And so I'd go out there in the evenings, got a part-time job, and God just opened up the doors. One thing led to the next, and I got a full-time job there and left teaching, and I've never looked back.
Bless your heart. Now, do you start as a DJ?
I did.
Did you? Really?
Yep. Did pretty much everything in a small radio station you can imagine.
Yeah.
From overnights to afternoons to mornings to production.
Making the coffee.
Yep, making coffee, writing memos, because this was before email.
Right.
Stuff like that. But yeah, it's been.
Okay, so you left there and you went to California?
I was there for 20 years, got into management, took myself off the air because God just grew a love for leadership within me. And then those 2 radio stations in the Carolinas that I managed were sold.
Okay.
And I lost my job.
Okay.
So in 2014, we moved all the way across the country to California, and I went to work for the largest Christian radio network in the nation called K-Love.
Okay.
And I worked there for 3 years, had an amazing experience, learned so much, and then God opened the door for me to come here to Houston.
Wow. Straight from California. Wow. Well, I've got a little treat here for our listening audience and for you, Joe. Going back to the day that Buddy signed on KSBJ for the very first time. Give a listen.
Station KSBJ, Humboldt, Texas. Now signing on the air. Brothers and sisters, FM 88 KSBJ, Something But a Jesus, is officially on the air. Praise the Lord.
And he was very much the professional broadcaster. But here he was sitting in that chair and going on the air for the very first time on a dream that took him 10 years of his life. And he couldn't contain it. And we did something that day that had not been done in any kind of radio industry genre that I was aware of at the time. We simulcasted. I was news director for a different radio station at the time. And I had started the Christian News Network over a separate network of stations across the country. And because of my connection with Buddy, I told him, I said, well, look, tomorrow morning when you sign on, I want to be there. And we'll just throw the system over to you, and we'll chat for a little bit, and we'll pick up on your sign on. And so I had 3 morning sets of news and 3 afternoon sets. And each of those sets we threw to Buddy. And so he was very much a part, and we were part of his first day on the air as KSBJ.
Now, this particular story I'm hearing for the very first time today.
Isn't that something?
Great.
And so months later, because I think that was several months later, they had their very first share-a-thon, which was their fundraising drive. And so we did the very same simulcast thing again. And this time Buddy called me and said, we're going to have our first share-a-thon. Would you like to be a part of it? I said, sure. So all 6 of my news sets that day, we would simulcast back to Buddy. He'd bring us up to date on their latest and fundraising, and we'd chat for a little bit on the air. So that was another hallmark moment for us. And from what I've heard, this has never been done on any radio station genre before. We were not considering ourselves competitors. Others may have seen us that way, but we were a totally different format than what KSBJ was. And so it was just a joy to share this moment with a brother in the Lord who was seeing the opening, the fulfillment of a vision that drove him for a good number of years, and be part of that history. So since that time, KSBJ has grown. I understand your 39th year this year, right?
Yes.
39 years.
Across 39 years.
We're going to have to do this again when you hit 40.
Yeah. It comes up in a year.
Yeah. And KSBJ has grown to be what I call an industry influencer. They have had an impact on Christian radio stations all across the country, and we're going to be talking about that here in just a minute. I want to go back to this slide that we're showing right now, having to do with it receiving a Station of the Year award from the National Religious Broadcasters, and this was dated in 2010. Bring us up to speed. Was this their very first such award?
I am not sure if that was the very first one, but we have been privileged to receive numerous awards over the years, and that goes back to Buddy's visionary leadership and people like Robert Gonzalez,
Yes.
The next station manager who was here for so many years, Tim McDermott,
Yes.
and all the people that really God used to build this ministry. And so we've been privileged to receive these awards, the National Religious Broadcasters. There's another organization called Christian Music Broadcasters. We won their Radio Station of the Year award. Just this past year, the NRB gave us the award for Best Digital Experience for the work we're doing in the digital space. So it's a great congratulations to the team for the hard work that they're doing, and it shows the generosity of the audience of KSBJ and how they've supported the ministry over these years.
Best digital
Experience.
experience.
Right.
Explain that.
Well, we launched in the beginning of 2020 a digital platform called Hope on Demand.
Oh, yes. Okay.
And so that was the award, was for hopeondemand.com.
Really? Explain that.
That is a site where we have devotionals and articles, short form videos, and podcasts that allows us to engage an audience that's maybe not tuning into the radio, or even for the radio audience, it's a way to engage them more deeply in spiritual things.
Okay. Okay. And that's been about a year now that y'all been
Year and a
engaged in
half.
that? Really? Wow. So going forward, now you had mentioned to me in our off time here that you were looking to expand this digital footprint for the radio station. What does that entail?
Well, it entails more content partnerships. The great thing about digital is there are no geographical boundaries, so
Right.
no matter where you are, you can log on to ksbj.org or hopeondemand.com. So it really opens up a whole new world, or opens up the world
Right. Right.
to spreading the message and the content there.
Now, are you receiving listener support, not necessarily financially, but just response from people around the world, from other countries that are picking up on KSBJ, take it over the internet as well?
Absolutely. In fact, one of the most amazing stories I ever received was just this past year. Somebody from a closed country emailed us and said, "I can't tell you where I'm listening because of my safety,
Right.
but God is using KSBJ in my life, and I listen all the time."
Wow. Wow. And that's where it really pays off. And I think this is what Jesus was addressing in that Matthew 24 reference, that in the end days, the message of the gospel was going to go out in such a way as to permeate those closed nations, those closed societies, to reach the hearts of people who are hungering for a closer relationship and knowledge of the Lord himself. Now, again, for those of you who are viewing this particular program in other nations, let's explain a little bit the format of KSBJ. This is not so much a traditional teaching, preaching type of radio station. The heartbeat of KSBJ is in its music. And you invite listeners to be a part of that process by which the music is chosen.
Yeah, well, in fact, we are better because listeners get involved and they tell us what their favorite songs are. They tell us what their less than favorite songs are, and that really helps us refine what people hear.
So now you were part of contemporary Christian radio before you came to KSBJ, I take it, okay? So in your years in this particular genre, what have you discovered as being where the Spirit is leading in the kind of music that gets the message across into people's lives as effectively as it is? What are your conclusions of this type of programming that is proving to be so successful?
Well, Wally, I liken it to a missionary. So if a missionary is going to go to a foreign country, they're going to learn the language of that country. Music is the language of the world.
Right.
Everybody resonates with music. And so contemporary Christian music is really taking that blessing and that gift from God, putting His word, His principles, His love and grace to music. And it is just powerful. He uses it to change people's lives all the time.
And you've mentioned that you all are focusing now more readily to the changing demographics in
Yes.
areas of the country and things like this.
Yeah, in fact, 11 years ago, we started a second radio station called NGen. It's 91.7 FM in Houston.
It's
And that's-
NGEN.
Right, and that stands for Next Generation, or
Okay.
the Now Generation, intended to reach young adults. And that's using Christian hip-hop music, because that's kind of music that a lot of young adults like to listen to.
Okay.
So we do pay attention to the demographics. You know, we're watching the growth of the Hispanic population, knowing that Jesus loves all the people of the world,
Right,
no matter
right.
what language they speak.
Right.
So what opportunities might we have in Houston with that kind
Yeah.
of population?
And of course, we do have a strong demographic in the Spanish community here as well.
Yes.
And so it's something that anybody who wishes to appeal to the demographics of a large area like Houston needs to give consideration to as well. So I know that you can't divulge much in the area of what you have planned for the future, but just to give some idea to our listening audience, viewing audience, how large KSBJ has grown, we're looking now at the group list of FM stations and translators that KSBJ overshadows, part of the KSBJ network. What do we have here? We got 3, 6, 9 stations.
Yep,
And
and
then-
they're all simulcast, so they're all broadcasting the same programming from our main signal, which is KSBJ 89.3. Our goal is really to cover kind of this triangle of southeast Texas, from Huntsville and Livingston over east to Beaumont, over west to Victoria, you know, Brenham,
Okay.
that whole area. That's really our charter from our board, and that's what God's laid on our heart.
What would you say would be the total population?
Well, thanks
Possibility
for
here.
asking that, because what our total population that we had been covering was 4.7 million.
Okay.
But a couple of years ago, God allowed us to move our main signal in such a way that we could now cover almost 7 million people. So that's
In this
nearly-
network or in
that
this
same
Houston area?
network, That
Right.
same network covering the greater Houston area, reaching up to 7 million people. So that's almost
Yeah.
48% increase.
Wow, wow. Now, for our audience that may not know or understand, what is a translator?
A translator is a smaller signal that just repeats, simulcasts the signal from a main radio station.
Okay.
So it covers a much smaller area, fewer people. It's also a lot less expensive. So
Okay.
those are ideal for smaller areas, or maybe pockets where your main signal doesn't cover and you need to.
So
cover
these
that
are not
area.
fully staffed radio stations
Correct.
themselves.
Correct. All of our staff is centrally located at our main studios in Humboldt.
Okay, okay. So is there, I know that you don't like to share prematurely any secrets or any plans going forward, but we did want this to be a KSBJ past, present, and future. So what future can you talk about in this area of KSBJ's continued expansion?
Yeah, no, it's a great and valid question. So what Buddy began as one single radio station, God is growing into a media ministry, and by media we mean we are. This is my favorite term: platform agnostic. We don't care. We don't care how people consume the content.
Uh-huh.
We just want to get it to them, because
Right.
our mission is to connect people more deeply to God. So yeah, we're going to use FM radio, but where we're really growing in addition to FM radio is we're growing in the digital space. We just acquired a software platform that allows us to have a prayer ministry nationally.
Okay.
That's called
Okay.
Amen, the prayer app.
Okay.
So that's
Huh.
now part of KSBJ. So
An app for your phone.
yeah,
Really?
and you can submit prayer requests. People can pray for you. It's pretty amazing. And then we're
So
also
while you're
paying attention to the demographic shift, like we talked about with the growing Hispanic population, and how can we reach them.
So while you're driving in your car, you can have somebody praying for you live over your phone.
Yeah, I mean,
On this app.
you wouldn't hear the audio, but they would click a button that says, "Hey, I just prayed for you."
Oh, okay, okay.
Yep.
Wow. Well, do we foresee a KSBJ TV down the line at all?
I don't know. Everything's on the table with hopeondemand.com, our digital platform. We do some short form videos now because more and more people are consuming videos.
Uh-huh.
So, I don't know. You never
Yeah.
know.
We'll soon see all your DJs on TV. Who knows? Hope Media. Now, is
Yes.
this a company that KSBJ is part of?
It was a corporate name change that we did about a year ago. So KSBJ, the legal name has always been KSBJ Educational Foundation.
Okay.
What we found is when we go out in the community and we talk about KSBJ, people would think of just the radio station 89.3 KSBJ. They wouldn't know that there's also a youth-oriented radio station, that there's also a prayer ministry, a concert ministry, that there's also now a digital platform of Hope on Demand. So we simply changed the corporate name to Hope Media Group so that it's easier to communicate that KSBJ is part of the ministry. It's a big part,
Yeah.
but it's part of this broader ministry that's reaching people in these different ways.
Right. Speaking of concerts, COVID has pretty much knocked all that out to a great degree. Any plans of returning to that you...
We are, by God's grace, returning to that with a couple of concerts this fall.
Okay.
They're doing very well in terms of tickets and people wanting to come. But yeah, it's been an interesting year. Last year, the team responded with doing digital concerts.
Okay.
And they were so well received. And we had people in Brazil and Argentina
Really?
and New York and California watching these digital concerts all over the world.
Now, is this a Zoom type of format, or is this just plug in
Similar
whenever you have...
to it. It was through Hope on Demand.
Uh-huh.
So
Okay.
then we would promote it and using social media and KSBJ, and
Right.
people would go and watch it by the thousands.
Really? Brown bag lunches. That's another thing that
Yeah.
y'all used to do back in the pre-COVID days.
Yes.
Any planned return to that?
We're not planning to return to those right now. They had gotten so, kind of victims of our own success, right? They had
Okay.
gotten so big and so popular that it was becoming increasingly difficult for us to find a place to even have them that would be safe.
Right.
And the fire marshal or police wouldn't want to shut us down. And then the expenses of all the production and everything.
Mhm.
So we're probably going to be sticking more with the ticketed concerts and maybe some digital
Right,
concerts going
right.
forward.
This particular area of expanding these networks is, from my perspective, prophetically important and significant because of what Jesus said. And I think that the timing of KSBJ's birth and its growth and expansion, alongside other ministries that are in the same field that you're in, is insurmountable proof of the day and time that we're living in. And I know that we are easily rediverted and redirected in our thinking and our focus and things of this nature in our busy lifestyles. But we keep bringing our thoughts back to this common ground, that Jesus said this was going to happen, and it was going to happen on a global scale, and the world would be impacted by it. And that's why I'm very, very pleased and proud to be a part of this particular vision from its ground up, and watching it expand to the level that it is right now. And I think that what I'm hoping in this particular show, because we reach the global audience as well through this program, I'm looking to introduce new listeners to KSBJ. I want them to become addicted to the sound of contemporary Christian music, because it's a fresh word, it's a fresh meat, it's a fresh message that today's world is in need of. And I've heard many testimonies of people that are listening to KSBJ who call in and things like this, and the impact that this station has had on people's lives. I've heard people who were on the verge of suicide, and you have too, calling in. And the last thing they did before they took their life was scan the radio dial and come upon KSBJ. And immediately their lives are turned. So I want to put that challenge out to all of you, wherever you may be living, be it in the States or outside the United States. Go to ksbj.org. That's probably going to be the the best way for you to get to this station. Other than the website, is there anything else that they can get to quickly, let's say in a different country, other than just the website that you may know?
KSBJ.org and also hopeondemand.com.
hopeondemand.com. We want to encourage you in a day that is getting ever darker, just as the Apostle Paul said it would, and Jesus said it would. This is a time to turn to a source of light that will always keep you encouraged. You can tune into this station 24/7 and always find the right song at the right moment to meet you where you are. And I'm just enthused by this growth of this station and this network of stations. And I want to invite you to be a part of it and write them, give them a call, and let them be of encouragement to you. Joe, thank you so much for being my special guest.
Thank you so much, Wally, for having me. This is great.
Praise the Lord. Thank you for watching.
You have been watching the Revelation File Report with Wally Wood, a Wally Wood Ministries production from Houston, Texas. You are able to support the ministry by donating at wallywoodministries.com and by mail at Wallywood Ministries, P.O. Box 42005, Houston, Texas 77242. Wally is available to present full 2-hour forums in your city called the Revelation File News Forum. For more details, contact Andy Valadez at 713-560-3348 or by email at andy@andyvaladez.com. The Revelation File News Report is a weekly update of global trends in the news as it aligns with end-time Bible prophecy. Tune in again next time and be sure to like and share this channel.